The Justice Department has opened an independent federal civil rights investigation into the death of Michael Brown. They are on the ground, and along with the FBI, they are devoting substantial resources to that investigation. The Attorney General himself will be traveling to Ferguson on Wednesday to meet with the FBI agents and DOJ personnel conducting the federal criminal investigation, and he will receive an update from them on their progress. He will also be meeting with other leaders in the community whose support is so critical to bringing about peace and calm in Ferguson.
There is no need to hype what is happening in Ferguson, Missouri. There is no need for bad actors to create more of a discourse and incite a local and global population with potential incendiary comments or pictures. But there are those, and it would appear they have chosen to make the shooting and riots in Middle America about themselves. And therein lies another danger in a rush to judgment. In other words, the media being part of the problem and not part of the solution. Let's welcome into MidPoint veteran television news anchor, executive producer, and Emmy Award winner Dave Erickson joins us. Dave, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
Dave, we have seen so much come out of Ferguson, Missouri in the last couple of days, but what has struck me and so many other people is that we are seeing, not everybody of course, but members of the media who are making this part of the show. They are putting themselves right smack dab in the middle of the coverage and making it about them and not necessarily about what is happening there. That goes against every coda that any journalist, any broadcast journalist has ever had, but it seems to be a creeping crud, if you will, into some of the coverage.
That's a good way to put it, a creeping crud. Actually, it's been abhorrent, horrendous, and simply irresponsible, Ed. It's just all part, as we talked about, a predetermined narrative. It is a predetermined narrative. They went in there, rogue, racist, white cop shoots, unarmed, innocent, black teenager, and this is all part of their narrative. It's kind of like reality television. You talk about inserting themselves into the story. This is reality television, and the search for truth, which is really the basic cornerstone of all journalism, really isn't at play here. It's really what serves the narrative, and you're watching reality television unfold on a 24-hour news cycle. It's simply irresponsible, and they haven't followed a single cornerstone of any journalistic ethics as laid out by the Society of Professional Journalists, and it's quite embarrassing to the profession as a whole.
But we would also need to point out, and you just brought in reality television to this, is it not fair to say that there are some programmers, not necessarily news people, but programmers who are sitting in the back right now watching the news product themselves going, this is great reality TV here, and this is ratings-driven television, so we need to put our talent in there somewhere. The problem with that is it takes away from what is the truth of the story. Is that not supposed to be what we're going for?
Well, that's exactly what we're supposed to be going for. That's what journalism is about. But you're not seeing a lot of journalism. You're seeing people insert themselves into a story. Journalism by nature, there are a lot of people these days in the business, and this is a discussion perhaps for another day. It's very narcissistic. They insert themselves into stories, and they call it reporter involvement. But the bottom line is what we're supposed to do as a journalist is go out, cover a story, do it truthfully, and try to seek the truth. But right now the truth gets in the way of what the predetermined narrative is, and so you're seeing a lot of exploitation. You're seeing a lot of one-sided reporting, and what's interesting about this is you see all these people who are looting and rioting and causing demonstrations out there in Ferguson, and nobody bothers to ask whether these people are there for the TV exposure or they are there because they truly are angry about this and they're trying to open up a dialogue. You know, one time when I was in local news, we went out to cover a story. I was called in a live truck and told to go down to cover the city council meeting. And the producer, before I even got there, said to me, hey, Dave, okay, here's the deal. We're going to start with a cold open tease, and then we're going to go to you, and you're going to have all these pissed off people at the meeting. And I said to my producer, I said, well, I'm not even there yet, so I don't know that there are pissed off people. I don't even know the story. And he said, it doesn't matter. Find at least one pissed off guy, that's your story. This guy ironically ended up going on to be a producer at CBS Evening News, but he already had a predetermined narrative, and it didn't matter whether it was the truth or not. It fit what his vision for the show was, and I was instructed to go down there and meet what his narrative was. And so there wasn't a lot of search for truth going on there. I ended up refusing to do the story. But what you're seeing in Ferguson, I would suspect, is a lot of that. They go down there, and the search for truth really isn't paramount. What they want to do is go down there and service what they think is going to make good television, is what is going to drag you in as a viewer.
I only got about 90 seconds left here, but let me get your opinion on this too. When we see the media getting involved with the protesters and then quote-unquote rioters as well in some cases, does it almost make the media in the minds of the protesters, empathetic to their cause, perhaps, and makes them seen as they're on our side.
Oh, absolutely. Of course they think they're on their side. They go down there, and the fact that a television station and another network would air the address of the police officer, I don't know how any journalist, anybody who would call themselves a journalist, would even think for 2 seconds to do something that irresponsible. The SPJ Code of Ethics clearly says that you don't do anything that is a license for arrogance. That in the business, we don't do anything that is a license for arrogance. We have to show good taste, and we have to avoid pandering to lurid curiosity. So a lot of this is lurid curiosity. You have people coming in who probably don't even live in Ferguson. I'm hearing reports that guys are coming in, people are coming in to loot and to riot and to make a big show of solidarity there, who aren't even from there. So yeah, the media is fueling this. It is like going into a fire and pouring more gasoline on it, and it's just not going to subside until the media, somebody has some degree of responsibility and says, you know, enough is enough. Let's try to get to the truth of the matter and try to quell this thing, because we are ultimately fueling it while we report it.
We will do our part with a little truth. Unfortunately, the president took us a little bit deep into our interview time here, Dave. We're going to have to let you go, but please, let's come back and do this again, because it certainly is a discussion for another day. Dave Erickson, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, let us now spin to the Opinionator for an immediate reaction to what we have just discussed. For that, we turn to nationally syndicated talk host on Sirius XM Radio, Brett Winterble. Brett, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Ed, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Brett, here we go. The media coverage itself of what is going on in Ferguson, Missouri. Your take.
Here's the bottom line. This isn't about journalism. This is about television. If it bleeds, it leads, and preferably it leads at the top of the hour. People have long since divided the lines on where they come down with this police officer and with this shooting. They've made their minds up because the media has helped them craft that narrative. My listeners are outraged. They're furious that the police officer's home address, personal details are being pushed out there, while the truth of the matter of the strong-arm robbery and maybe Michael Brown's prior record are completely ignored. The news media have been complicit, but it's the television industry as a whole, the entertainment medium, the content creators that have worked so hard to push this into the primetime hours. Every night on every cable channel you see, anchors getting warmed up as they say, it's starting to get dark in Ferguson. We'll see what starts to happen now. And they cut right out there. Honestly, it's reminiscent of what you saw in the early days of the Iraq War, where you would see the jets take off at 8 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, going on their bombing runs to Iraq, and they would deliver their payloads in the early evening newscasts. You would see it in live, real time. This is no longer about getting to truth or objective reality. What we're seeing is the copsification, to borrow a phrase from a television show, of the news. It's about seeing drama, conflict, reporters getting hit with tear gas canisters, and preferably a fight or two before you go to bed. It is shameful. Truth is ultimately the casualty here, Ed.
I only got about 40 seconds left. Is this basically part of someone's idea that the cops are easy to make out to be the bad guys here because they're all dressed in military gear?
Well, without a doubt. Look, Eric Holder has come down to Ferguson. You've got 40 FBI agents investigating this. This is a Justice Department that has made its stock in trade in investigating police departments across the country. Absolutely. The police are an easy villain. We've gone from militarization to brutality, and now we're going to go to a kangaroo court, without a doubt, Ed.
20 seconds. What is your opinion then on Eric Holder going to Ferguson?
I think he's going there to stoke the fire. I think he's going there to try to show the community that he's on their side. If he was really interested in justice, he would make an effort to meet Darren Wilson. He won't do that.
And there goes another one of those things, those unfortunate truths sometimes we have to deal with. Brett, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. We'll do it again for a lot longer time next time, my friend. Thanks so much.
Great to see you, Ed. Thank you.
All right, you too. There goes again what we are going to be talking about here as we go through the rest of MidPoint today. A couple of times we are going to address the facts of what is going on, because quite frankly, there are a number of facts that are not making it out there, whether it be against, for the police, against, for the people who are there, the protesters themselves. The facts need to be told. And I guarantee you that on the Newsmax TV network and on the show, we will do our damnedest every single day to make sure that we give you both sides of the story. Later on this hour, we learn how one creates the perfect face in the worst local TV commercial ever in a trip to Outland. You'll tell us what you think before we head to Outland. And we got a lot more coming up right here on the Newsmax TV network.